Welcome to Network TV. I'm David Maybe, your host for today. For the past 23 years, NCW Tech Alliance has been honoring and celebrating innovation throughout the region. This season of Network TV is particularly special as we highlight some of the remarkable innovators in North Central Washington. From the lively classrooms of their K-12 schools to the state-of-the-art labs in our colleges and the energetic startups and established tech companies, this region is a beacon of creativity and innovation. Our first segment will feature Rosendo Alvarado from Sila Nano. Sila Nano is a cutting-edge battery materials company that has recently established a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Moses Lake. This facility is dedicated to producing advanced silicone-based anode materials for lithium-ion batteries, significantly enhancing battery performance and supporting the growth of the electric vehicle market. Sila Nano's commitment to sustainability and local workforce development is truly commendable. In our second segment, we will hear from Jeff Moser of FieldClock. FieldClock is a software developed for farmers by farmers to aid in the accurate labor and piecework tracking. This innovative tool helps farmers save time and money while ensuring fair and accurate payment for employees. FieldClock's dedication to making their platform accessible and affordable for all farming operations, along with their support for local communities, makes them a standout in the agricultural tech space. Stay tuned as we dive into these inspiring stories of innovation and community impact. We'll be right back with Network TV. Welcome back to Network TV. I want to introduce you to Rosendo Alvarado?
Yeah.
Rosendo?
Rosendo.
Sorry, Rosendo. From Sila Nano, who they recently set up a cutting-edge facility in Moses Lake, and you're the plant manager?
Yes, plant manager.
Welcome to Network. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
So what is your daily role at the plant at Sila Nano in Moses Lake?
Yeah, so right now we're actually building the plant, and we're expecting to be starting with our commissioning and startup process in the next couple of months. We'll start with the first part of the plant. So right now it's a lot of like getting prepared for the commissioning and startup, hiring, getting things like procedures written for the operations and training programs, things like that. So holistically, it's like getting this whole plant put together for an operation.
That's got to be pretty big responsibility for
you. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's pretty hectic, but it's really fun. I mean, we have a lot of really good people that have experience in previous builds and other industries, but building plants in general, so they have a good idea of how to do this, and they're doing a super good job of it.
Nice. And so the mission on Sila's website is to power the world's transition to clean energy. Yeah. So what role do you play in that, or how can you speak to that from your eyes and your role?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is us making our impact on reducing fossil fuels. And by doing that, we're in the battery sector where we produce the material, the anode material, so it's not actually the whole battery, it's the powder, if you will, nano powder that is utilized for the anode side, and we use silicon. We replace the graphite with silicon, and so it's much more efficient and it's more available to the consumer. So by doing that, holistically, we can reduce fossil fuels in the world and make it available for the consumer.
And so how long have you been working there, and did you come from Moses Lake, or how did you find yourself in this field and in this job?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Moses Lake. I worked for a company that produces silicon for the solar industry and semiconductor industry. So I worked there 26 years. I was part of a project where we built onto the plant, $1 billion project, and had the experience to where Sila saw a need, and a year and a half ago I joined Sila because I thought it would be a little more adventurous and chaotic, which it is. So it's good chaos, and I certainly enjoy it.
Perfect. So you talked a little bit about that, but can you explain kind of that innovative technology, or is the process any different to create this new silicone-based anode materials you're talking about?
Yeah, and so it's actually silicon And so what we do is we replace the graphite. Years ago, because graphite right now is the primary product used in the lithium-ion batteries, and so we replaced it with silicon because the graphite has seen its potential reached years ago, and so the silicon provides a more dense battery product that can provide longer time on the road and shorter charge times. So that makes it, better for the consumer who's really looking at like something that's more comparable to the automobiles that they're used to. We're 10 minutes at the gas pump, or being able to drive for a certain amount of time. So with silicon, we're able to do that.
And does this will this work with like specific electric cars, or are these batteries specific to anything? Or
they're really versatile and can go in really any application when it comes to the electric vehicles. So right now it's basically like us working with certain manufacturers, battery manufacturers, to see what vehicles they would go in. And currently, Mercedes is the biggest that we've announced early on that we're providing material for in early 2026.
Wow, congratulations. That's pretty big.
Thank you.
Do you know from your position what drew Sila to Moses Lake for their new manufacturing facility?
Yeah, really, we have the hydropower in the Grant County, and so making that available for affordable power, and the workforce is strong with the industry, and then it's located right near a silane plant, which is our feedstock for our products that creates the silicon-based nano.
And how many new jobs will this plant bring to Moses Lake?
We should be, so we'll go in phases, and this year we'll finish out just under 100, and then our next phase, next year we'll go to roughly 125 to 130, and then we'll step up with an additional phase to roughly 300. Eventually 2028, 500 to 1,000 jobs.
Wow.
Depending on
just in Moses Lake.
Yeah, just in Moses Lake, which Moses Lake is booming right now in terms of industry, and so it's also a challenge to get the right people and the right skill sets.
So to get into that, how are you partnering? Are you partnering with any local institutions, educational outlets, or anything like that to try to get some of those candidates for yourself? Yeah,
for sure. There's a CB Tech, which is it's a high school-based program, but more from the technology side of things, where they teach skills like instrument, electrical, mechanical, and computer science, things of that nature. And then there's Big Bend Community College that's in the area. It has the associate's degree available, as well as the technical side of same thing as CB Tech. So we partnered with them to develop a workforce development program, and we also donated $1 million to each of those schools.
Oh.
And that was possible through a grant that we were given, and so through those awards we've been able to allocate the funds and work with them on ordering equipment and starting to build up manufacturing and teaching the kids like different aspects of manufacturing. We're roughly like 400 and I would say just under 450 hours of community service in the area. So that's amongst all our staff, which is roughly 45 people right now.
Right.
So we're getting out in the community, and we're excited about helping and then developing the workforce to enhance the amount of people that we'll be able to get.
Yeah, I'd have to say the forward thinking, because you guys aren't even open yet at the plant, is amazing, and to get that to where a big impact on the local community is if the local kids and everybody else can get jobs.
Yeah, it's exciting because we see the development. I mean, we're involved already in like mock interviews to teach them, like if they were to come to apply for a job with us, what would an interview be like, and get them, experience on that setting and to help them feel a little bit more at ease in that process.
Yeah. So what's it been like working with, so is it just Grant PD you're working with? What's it like working with them as the hydropower source that probably plays an integral part into your?
I would say it's definitely good, but it's certainly challenging because right now transmission is a big factor in getting power to the Wheeler corridor, which is where we're located and other companies are located. So right now that's been a challenge to where we're pushing for additional transmission so that we can get into the next phases of our build out. But those projects take years, we understand, and I know the PUD is working hard to try to mitigate that and come up with certain fixes for the short term and long term. So it's just a continued partnership that we have to keep working on.
Yeah, and I just want to ask you: do you have any personal goals on hiring X amount of locals, or is that? It sounds like it's top of mind for the company to implement all these projects.
Yeah.
I mean, educational things. But is there any specific goals, or what would make you happy if you were to look out in the future? Like, what would success be for you for like this program working for local kids in Moses Lake, or even just in our communities?
Yeah, I think the success looks like a diverse work group that has the talent to bring this facility up. Specifically, like within the community, we've already hired 2 individuals that graduated from the Big Bend Instrument and Electrical Technical program. So that makes it more rewarding that we are bringing kids straight out of the programs that we're supporting so that they can work at Sila, and they're doing a great job. We've also started discussing the internship program. So the first need will be within the IT structure, and so we'll get some kids in there to begin working in IT with our people, and they'll develop skills. So as we grow that program out, to me that's the most rewarding, is that you get to show the individuals, the younger individuals, that there's more to like industry and manufacturing than just I'm an operator or I'm a technician. There's so many different possibilities, and whether you got technical skills, college background, or just off the street. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunity.
Well, that's amazing. Well, Rosendo, I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for talking about the Sila Nano and everything they're bringing to Moses Lake. That's going to do it for today. For this portion of the segment, we'll be right back with our second part of the segment here on Network TV. Welcome back to Network TV. I'd like to introduce you to Jeff Moser from FieldClock.
Moser.
Moser.
Sure.
Sorry.
SH almost.
Sorry. Okay. Jeff Moser from FieldClock.
That's also, are we editing?
No, we're just going live, but we're good. So sorry about that, Jeff. From FieldClock, which is an industry-leading farm labor management app. How are you doing today?
Good. Yourself?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
So how does FieldClock software address kind of the unique challenges faced by farmers in the labor and piecework tracking?
Well, what we found about in 2015 is that there wasn't a whole lot of data collection out there. So up to that point, and a lot of them still today, are using pen and paper. So if you can imagine going out and doing a harvest for an entire orchard or an entire field and having hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of pieces that you're trying to record on a piece of paper or a punch card, and then you're taking it back at the end of the day, you're reconciling it, you want to make sure everybody gets paid appropriately. Pretty arduous, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, hey, what if we just scanned? Just at that time, the iPhone was robust enough to have Bluetooth and all the other accoutrements to it to really help with that end. So that's where we are today. It's just really grabbing all that information, so at the end of the day and real time, they can check it and see how they're doing, as far as the production.
Yeah. So I guess how did this start from the beginning? You're talking about the iPhone being robust in the beginning. Was this kind of a thought that has just kind of kept building from like trials? And
one of our founders, one of the partners, he was in the orcharding business, right? Had been farming for a couple decades up to that point, and it was his idea, thinking, hey, we could do some type of data collection with a phone, so we'd have real-time information at that point. So that's, again, it was fairly fortuitous, because in 2010 you wouldn't have been able to get all that information. So
right. So what motivated FieldClock to ensure kind of their platform remains accessible and affordable to both the small farmer and the large farmer?
Well, that was just based on economies of scale. And our first iteration of it was going after the smaller farms, because we understood that they had the same amount of burden as the large ones. And when it came to, the financial or the regulations from the feds and the state, counties, all that, small farms were having a much harder time dealing with that because they didn't have the resources. So we designed the whole thing for the smaller farmers. And then at that point, we realized we could scale it up to get as large as they wanted to.
And when you're talking a small farm, how many people are we dealing with there? And then what's the scale of like a large farm that you guys are working with?
The way we look at it, a smaller farm, it's not small like it's tiny and not, but anyways, it's about 250 and less employees at any given time. That would be a small farm. But of course, we have some clients that only have 2 employees other than the owners themselves.
Right.
So it really works all the way across the board. The large stuff, we have clients that have 8,000 employees.
That's crazy.
Rolling at any point. So.
That's a lot of people out in the fields. Yeah. So what ways does FieldClock support farmers with fulfillment and compliance? You mentioned this a little bit there, but how do you kind of support them with that, the fulfillment and compliance part?
For example, on the compliance end, if you're getting an audit from the state or the feds, they're going to request a lot of information from you. We have it, if you're using FieldClock, you can just access that information immediately, either through a pre-built report, or you filter a report and then just give them the information, or just call our support staff. If you're not really used to being audited, of course we have a lot of clients, so we've seen it many times, we know what they're looking for. Get a hold of our support staff, which is always available, and flip it out to you.
Yeah, so I guess what was some of the biggest challenges in the beginning there before you'd gone through all the audits and things like that?
Just understanding what the marketplace was. We understood inherently from the partners of how to farm and what it took to farm. But what we didn't understand is all the other aspects, because every business is going to be unique in its own way, right? So we just had to meld all that together. You can't really fake it. You got to put the time in and get the information over the course of about 5.5 years. And then we really had a product that was fully fleshed and out to the marketplace.
And are you guys still, I imagine there's still iterations and tweaking going on. Did you taking feedback from the farmers, or how does that process kind of work?
Absolutely, on a constant basis. And through that evolution, we found out that the payroll was the biggest part, especially for the smaller farms, because you can have many different payroll institutions or types, whether it's a ADP or a Famous or any of those other type of accounting firms. It was fairly arduous to get the information in there, so we created a platform and worked with ADP directly to have an embedded payroll. So again, for those smaller farms, 250 or less people, it's one easy button. So we take all that information within FieldClock, and it goes directly into the embedded system, and now your payroll is finished as soon as your day is done.
So it's just sparking my mind. So is this the FieldClock? Is this like an app that each worker would have on their phone, and they're responsible for clocking in, clocking out?
No, typically what you have is a crew boss, right? And they will clock everybody in. They can either do everybody all at once, because again, if your crew has 300 people, it takes a long time to scan. So you can bulk clock in. That's one of the itinerations that we figured out of going, last 10 years of figuring all this stuff out. So they get the information typically through a crew boss, and then the scanning, like if somebody's picking cherries, every box that they have that they dump into the bin, or every box that they put in there, it scans their badge. They'll just have it hanging on them, so they know their pieces are attributed to them. But to start the whole day off, they could just group clock in or individually scan everybody. Got
you, and that's got to be important too, because I know a little about that, but I assume that they get paid by the bin, or is there incentives and things like that based off more?
All over the place as far as how people pay. Some people use straight hourly, some are doing it by piecework and hourly, bonuses.
Right.
So we built it to accommodate all of those.
Right, and I imagine that probably makes the farmer feel a lot better about it, because there's no really getting around a scan, I'd assume.
Correct.
Makes it a lot more accurate. And
yes, if it's used appropriately, anything can be messed with, but if it's used appropriately, yeah, it's really hard to get past.
That's incredible. So can you explain kind of FieldClock's various platform options and how those if there's a different advantage to a different platform?
It's pretty much is how much information are you going to need back from FieldClock. So again, the small family plan, that's going to be the least expensive route, and you can go all the way up to the enterprise level. But at that point, typically people are wanting the API opened up so they can get into FieldClock with their own developers and get the information out. So as far as the different levels, it's how far do you want to take it?
Oh, okay.
Do you just need time in and time out and GPS location and everything else that comes with FieldClock, or do you want the full robust package that's going to give you everything under the sun?
Wow. I guess what excites you in the future forward how do you think FieldClock could help going forward, or any new iterations of that could help farmers and also FieldClock with changing in the farm industry?
Good question. I think the main driving factor and point on that is the regulatory bodies, right? It's constant pushing down on the farmers, telling them what they need and what they have to do. And in order to accommodate that, they're going to need a lot of technology to keep up, with the margins that they're dealing with these days. I don't know if you're aware of this, but, a box of apples on average really hasn't changed to the farmers what they're getting for the last 20 years.
Right.
But all the other inputs, the labor has gone up 50% in some cases. So it's trying to strike that balance on the margins for them. So we continue to throw out technology so they can keep their margins and stay profitable.
Right, and that was just what sparked my mind as we were talking to somebody who has a few orchards, and they were saying they're ripping out some different crops pairs or different things like that because it's no longer worth them
viable for
them to sell it the way their orchard works.
Right, and the farmers are under so many constraints and stressors anyways, because when they go about pulling out an orchard because, hey, that variety isn't really bringing any money right now, so they tear that out, invest, a lot of money per acre to replant that, put the irrigation back in, and hope that the variety that they chose is the right one. Right. In 5 years when they start to get paid for it, because they have that entire gap and they have all the work and inputs in the meantime. So it's inherently an inefficient type of model,
right?
Farming, period, because the rain can kill you, a lot of things can really destroy it. So it's like everything that we can throw into it to make it that much more efficient.
Yeah, so do you guys have any sort of, since you've been doing it for so long, do you have any sort of data for I guess different sectors or fields or places where you could tell people what could work grow there, or is it still just kind of a crapshoot on? No,
as far as that, the agronomy, we're not experts in that.
Oh, okay.
We'll let them deal with that end of it, but we can definitely, we have a partnership or an agreement with the National Farm Bureau that took about 1.5 years to get that agreement with them, but now we're a member benefit for the National Farm Bureau, and from that, we're going down to each of the states, to really get evolved out into the ecosystem to find out more information.
Right.
And that's symbiotic relationship. We're giving them information, they're pulling it back from us, we're getting it from them.
Yeah, because it seems like that's kind of where the disconnect is happening in a lot of that stuff. It's going out to the packing plant and they come back a year later with a bill instead of a check.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, that's all the time we have. It flew by. I want to thank you for coming on and thank you for talking about FieldClock.
No problem.
We look forward to having you at the Innovator Awards here coming up. And that's going to do it for this episode of Network TV. Make sure to tune in next week and join us for another show.